All right, I'm here with Patrick, the innovator Chapin. We're here at Grand Prix Columbus, which is a legacy event, and you have brought what has been, I guess, a staple of Magic for about as long as the card Survival of the Fittest has existed. Survival decks pride themselves on being able to generally act as a toolbox for virtually any situation, be able to provide all kinds of pressure, make sure that they are able to get out of any unsavory situations they might find themselves in. How has the deck treated you so far today? I guess today and yesterday, yeah.
Yeah, had a really good day yesterday.
Yeah.
Today a little rocky so far, but we're two rounds in.
Okay.
Side doesn't master anyway.
Yeah. Well, let's see. Why don't we start taking a look through the deck? Up here in the upper left-hand side, we see the base engine of the deck, it looks like. We've got Survival of the Fittest and Fauna Shaman. You're also running Aether Vial.
Yeah, okay, so one of the problems that survival decks have always had is they are classically great if they have a survival and pretty terrible if they don't.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the nice things about the new Fauna Shaman is that even though it's not as powerful as a survival, it's about half as good as a survival, which still makes it better than almost anything.
Yeah.
Because usually if you untap with survival, you beat most people.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas with Fauna Shaman, you usually have to untap a few times because it's only a demonic tutor every turn instead of like survival is like necropotence.
Yeah.
Whereas Fauna Shaman is more like just it's like demonic tutor every turn.
Yeah, the tap symbol is a very, very important thing combined with summoning sickness.
Yeah, but it still does what you need to do. You can still combo people out because a little bit different of approach that I took for this deck is focusing more on the combo kill.
Excellent.
Instead of just being all value and 2-for-1s. I mean, there's still a variety of really good toolbox cards to go get, but most of them are either just things to keep me alive in really bad situations or cards that hose people and beat them single-handedly.
Okay.
Other than the combo.
Yeah.
And Aether Vial is one of the most important cards in the deck as well. It's probably the second best card in the deck, simply because outside of being able to beat all the different blue decks, like the different counterbalance decks and whatnot,
Right.
it has a variety of other things it does, like lets you play Fauna Shaman by surprise when people have tapped out,
Okay.
which helps protect it. You know, summoning sickness obviously hurts. And then flashing down creatures like Mesmeric Fiend or Magus of the Moon. And this is sort of the toolbox cards, the cards that are good in particular occasions.
Okay.
The Aether Vial can often be better than a Soul Ring, sometimes even Black Lotus, because you're tapping it for 2 or 3 mana of any color you want.
Right.
And at instant speed and uncounterable. So it's really the two key cards are Survival and Aether Vial.
Okay. Well, I mean, it wouldn't be a survival deck if it didn't have creatures in it. So why don't we start running through the gamut?
All right. So the most important creatures are Loyal Retainers from Portal 3 Kingdoms.
Okay.
Iona, Emrakul, and Anger. And Loyal Retainers is an obscure Portal 3 Kingdoms card that when you sacrifice it on your turn before you attack, you can put a legend from your graveyard onto the battlefield. And a lot of people know that you can do it with Iona, but a lot of people don't realize that it also works with Emrakul because you can respond to the trigger. If you discard the Emrakul to a Fauna Shaman or a Survival, you can then get it back with the Loyal Retainer.
Okay.
And if you use the Survival, even better, you can go get Anger so that you can then discard Anger and hit them with Emrakul immediately.
Nice.
And then other than that, just have things like discard to hit combo and control decks, creature removal for beatdown decks and Tarmogoyfs and things like that. Then a card to hit non-basic lands like the 37 land deck, and the Harmonic Sliver to solve problems that way.
Okay.
And then the rest is all mana other than, Squee is part of your engine, because when you have a Squee, you can just get an extra card every single turn.
Right. All right. I mean, it looks like you've got a couple extra interesting creatures here that will provide a nice purpose. I mean, you have Wall of Roots over here and Dryad Arbor, both of which are creatures that double as mana production for you, which, I mean...
Yeah, I wanted to try to keep the creature count as high as possible because there's nothing worse than being stuck in a situation when you have survival but you don't have a creature to pitch.
Right.
And I wanted one more mana creature, so I used a Wall Roots because sometimes I want to just go get a blocker, you know?
Yeah.
And Dryad Arbor was useful. First of all, it's really cute with Aether Vial because you can just play it for 0, you know?
Yeah.
And then in addition, it makes all my fetch lands much better because sometimes I just need a surprise blocker to help stay alive long enough to combo somebody out.
Yeah. being able to have a land in your hand that you're able to survival away to get your combo is also very nice. It's much more useful in a forest in most spots, I would imagine.
Well, yeah, the problem is it has summoning sickness, but just trying to stay alive sometimes gives it added value.
Yeah.
And then the two wastelands and the Magus of the Moon are also particularly important because a lot of people have been taken to using Caracas,
Okay.
which, if they have a Caracas in play, they could just tap it to return your Iona or your Emrakul to your hand, so you can't combo out.
Yep. No good. All right. Well, let's see. I mean, I expect as coming into most events, you've done a lot of preparation. I would imagine. I mean, you've got a fairly decent amount of a fairly decent grasp on the formats. Would you say?
A little. I mean, I try. It's just recently we've been testing for Nationals and Amsterdam as well, so kind of split 3 different ways. And Legacy is a really deep and complex format, but fortunately, a number of my friends play quite a bit of Legacy. They help get me up to speed a bit, and we play tested, a fair bit. And
sweet. Well, I mean, the 2 biggest decks in the format right now, I would say, are probably Counterbalance and Goblins, or Merfolk. One of those 2. So those 3 decks are fairly strong. How does your deck fare against those 3 strong decks?
Well, the Counterbalance decks are relatively easy. Game 1, they can just randomly counterbalance lock you really fast. But if you stick an Ether Vial, you can still win through that. After sideboarding, it actually becomes even worse for them because we have a variety of creatures that make our spells. We have, the Vexing Shusher to fight right through the counterbalance, Wickerbraw Elder to destroy it, or if they get a Pithing Needle.
Okay.
And it doesn't cost the same as our other artifact and enchantment removal spells.
Nice to get around the counterbalance.
Another Harmonic Sliver, because if you play against some of the blue-white decks with Enlightened Tutor, they play so many artifacts and enchantments that sometimes if you play a second Harmonic Sliver, you'll destroy 4 things.
Excellent.
And then a number of Croson Grips, because I really don't want to lose the counterbalance.
Yeah.
And then as far as the Goblins goes, the Goblin deck has Game 1, we can be in pretty bad shape, especially if they have a Lackey. But sometimes we get a fast combo. And then after sideboarding, these 2 cards make a huge impact because Goblin Pyromancer is a tutorable Wrath of God.
Excellent.
And with our Cabal Therapies, we often empty their entire hand, so that can leave them with nothing. And then the Spore Frog lets us set up a lock where every single turn we're Spore Frogging, and then we use Emrakul to shuffle our graveyard back, and then we go get Spore Frog again. So we can just keep it up forever because we just keep going to get Squee and then get Spore Frog and looping the 3 around.
Excellent. Yeah, I mean, that's actually something very important to point out. Many people will miss this last line on Emrakul that says whenever he is put into a graveyard from anywhere, the owner shuffles the graveyard into the library. It's not just the creature, it's the entire graveyard, which lets you set up loops with some of your creatures. Your creatures get more value than they have in previous survival decks where they become one-shot answers. Now they can literally be an answer every single turn if you need them to be.
Oh, absolutely. I had one opponent who just kept countering Loyal Retainer, and I just cast it every turn until he died because I can just keep shuffling things back. I didn't have any other creatures, but I just kept playing it over and over and over again until
Excellent. Well, let's see, what else do you have hiding in that sideboard over there?
So 3 Thought Seizes, because one of the vulnerabilities of playing a deck with no Force of Wills is people are going to kill you in the first or second turn. I mean, if you don't have, so some Thought Seizes can help give a shot against them.
Excellent.
And then Ethersworn Catanist and Gaddock Teague are just more hosey creatures where sometimes against people I'll play a survival on turn 2, and I'll want a good creature to get on turn 3 that'll disrupt them long enough to buy me some time.
Yeah.
Lone Missionary is just helpful for some of the burn decks. I even played against the Lava Spike deck earlier,
Yeah, life gain definitely will go a long way.
And then Fairy Macabre, because I don't think that I'm actually in that good of a shape against a graveyard deck, but with a bunch of discard I can try to slow them down, and the one Fairy Macabre has a lot of value with survival, just because you can always go get it, and then with the Emrakul you can shuffle your graveyard back, so you can Fairy Macabre them as often as you want.
Excellent.
And this is obviously much better against like a Reanimator deck or like Bomberman or something like that.
Something where you have single targets that you need to remove rather than just moving bulk number of cards
and
from the
enough
graveyard.
time to actually stick a survival or a Fauna Shaman.
Yeah. Well, excellent. I mean, on a scale of 1 to 10, about how difficult would you say this deck is to play? I mean, that's the problem with survival decks a lot of times is the curve gets kind of high because there are so many opportunities to make decisions, and every time there's a large number of opportunities to make decisions, there are opportunities to make mistakes.
Yeah, I guess it depends. It's hard to rate on a scale of 1 to 10. I guess pretty hard. It's too hard for me. It's really hard. It's just strong enough that hopefully with as many mistakes as I'm making that I'm still able to put it through. I actually found that the best strategy for me was to not think about my plays so much, because it's too hard to figure out how to play this deck. So if I just play an intuition, then at least I don't get worn out and tired.
Yeah.
So I try to only think about 3 things a match, but the deck's really hard.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I appreciate you taking the time to talk to me. Would you recommend? I mean, especially with a large increase the number of legacy tournaments that go on over the course of the year. Like, do you think this would be a fun deck for players to pick up and experiment with as the year progresses?
Yeah, and I definitely recommend practicing with it. But I mean, if you especially people who have experience with survival, it uses a lot of the same skills as old survival decks. I mean, it's still your demonic tutoring every turn. And if you like versus, you would probably like. But it's. I think it's really strong, and I think it's going to have staying power beyond just this weekend,
Excellent. Well, Patrick, I appreciate you taking the time to talk to me. Thank you very much for showing us how your deck works.